February 4th, 2025, the Board of Trustees of the Porte Independent School District is now convened. Notice of this meeting was posted in compliance with the Texas Open Meetings Act at 5 p.m. Friday, January 31st. Subjects to be discussed or considered, whereupon formal action may be taken, were listed in that document. Let the record show that a quorum is present. This time, you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we'll get back to our dinner. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The Texas flag? On the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Tonight's invocation will be given by Ms. Thompson.
Lord, as we come together tonight, let us keep our minds open and our hearts open to what is going to be said to us this evening. We all gather to do the best that we can for the students and the staff at Porte ISD. It's in your name we pray.
Amen. All right. The board will now hear those who wish to make comments and will complete and return the public comment participation requests. If any? None. All right. So we will go to you, Dr. Jackson.
So good evening, board. Thank you for joining us tonight for the finance review meeting. As fiduciary stewards of our district, it is certainly essential that we all have a clear understanding of our financial position in the school district. During this session tonight, in the tutelage of our CFO, Stacey McDowell, will conduct a detailed line-by-line, section-by-section review of the district's financials and balance sheet, ensuring that every trustee is equipped with the knowledge and answers questions needed to assess our financial health on a monthly basis. Again, your time and diligence and thoughtful questions are invaluable in maintaining transparency and fiscal responsibility, and we appreciate your commitment to this process and to the continued financial stability of our school district. Without further ado, Mr. President, I'll invite our CFO up, and she will start with the presentation.
Okay. So, good evening, Board and Dr. Jackson. So, our workshop tonight, the goal of this workshop is to offer a high-level overview of Porte ISD's financial statements to assist the board of trustees at our monthly board meetings. So, we will discuss the following reports: our balance sheet, our revenue and expenditures, our capital project statement, our tax collection report, our quarterly investment report, and our budget amendments. So I'm going to go through each one a high low. For our balance sheet, it reflects the state of our district finances at a moment in time. So it is what is owned and owed at a point in time. Our revenue and expenditure statement reflects the revenues received and the expenditures paid at a moment in time. It's the difference impacts the fund balance. Our capital project statement reflects our budget, expenditures, and remaining budget for the bond projects for our 2014 and our 2023 bonds. So this presentation is also, this is the December 2024 statements that we're going to go through, which will be a part of your February board meeting. And the reason that we do it, it's February, but we're giving you December, is because we have our board meetings on the second Tuesday of the month, which we have to give you our information the week prior to that. So there's only a few days that we have to be able to close out, reconcile, and give you correct information. That's why we give you a month behind. So our tax collection reports, they reflect our tax collections received as of the end of the month, reported, and year to date. It also reflects the remaining tax collections that are due to the district. Our quarterly investment report reflects the change for cash and investment balances on a quarterly basis, and our budget amendments reflect the transfers between functions to pay for upcoming expenditures. So first we're going to discuss our balance sheet. So as you can see, the assets must equal our liabilities and our owner's equity. Our owner's equity is our fund balance. So in your package, you're going to have this presentation, but you'll also have the financial statements. And so you'll see, as you follow along, you're going to see a letter up in the corner here, and it's going to correspond to where it is on the financial statement. So we can follow along together and go through each piece. So we are required to give you the financial information for the funds that the board adopts a budget for each year, which is our general fund, our food service, and our debt service. But we also provide you with our capital projects financials for transparency. So as you can see, the way our assets are at the top, and this is our cash and investments at the top. And again, you can, as you go across the top of the table, you'll see the different funds that we're going to discuss. So our cash and investments, again, this is as of December 31st. They are a certain amount across the top, and then you go down and you add up all the different receivables. So we know we have delinquent property taxes, the due to, or the due from other funds, or the due from other governments. Those are largely timing. It's due to us, but we haven't physically received it yet, but we do have to account for it because we know it's coming in the future.
Is it December when we like typically the lowest and
That's very, yes, sir, that's correct.
this is like theory one of our
Yes, because we start getting, in theory, yes, it's going to be really, because December is when we're relying on our fund balance to kind of hold us over, because we haven't received our tax revenues or our statement, our payments from the state, which those will come later. But our tax revenues are going to come. We're getting them left and right now. January and February, the first week of February is a big month for us. But yes, that you're correct. So our cash is going to be lower. It might not be the lowest, but because when we make that recapture payment, that's when it's going to hit. Yes, sir.
normally do that in October.
We do that in June. Yes, sir.
On due from other governments. So is that the buzz that's been in the news where some of the funds where everything got frozen temporarily?
No.
Okay.
No, that's a great question, but this does not reflect any of the grant funding.
Okay.
Food service would have been a part of that because that is federal funding. But so that $4 million that you see there, that is really consists of money that's due from us from the state for our available school fund and our foundation payment. And we also have our tax deposits. So we know we're getting them, but they haven't hit our books yet. But we've got the report saying we're getting them, but they haven't hit our bank statement yet, so we couldn't. And that was $3 million of that $4.
Okay.
Yeah. Going forward, then we have our liabilities. So that's what we owe. So really, we don't have a whole lot, especially in December. Our accrued wages are, you'll see that in our general fund and our food service, because that's employees' salaries. That is, everyone's on a different calendar, and so we have to account for payroll that hasn't actually happened yet. So that number stays stagnant throughout the year, and then in June, we do an annual entry that flexes that. It always stays pretty close to it, but it kind of ups and downs it. But as you'll go through the year, it'll be around the same amount. Again, so in your liabilities, and it shows the same funds. So then we go to deferred inflows and fund equity. So the fund equity portion is the fund balance that's set aside for certain uses. So let me see if this pointer works here. Okay. Maybe not. Okay. So you'll see right here it says non-spendable inventories and prepaid items. That's going to fluctuate throughout the year, but all the others are going to stay the same. So, in fact, y'all actually, you're committed for your insurance and catastrophic loss and compensated absences. Those amounts are something in, I believe it's in August, maybe in June. Yes, June.
Concert for November.
Oh, I'm sorry. That y'all, yeah. And then y'all, that is something that y'all approve at your board meeting. Sure. No.
Non-spendable. I always wondered, what is that and what are those numbers?
So our prepaid items are anything, so our fiscal year goes from July 1st through June 30th. So if we have to pay for something that is, let's say it's in May, but we know something's going to happen in July. We can go ahead and pay for it right now, and it goes into a prepaid item, and then, so that we, at the time. So a perfect example would be our property insurance. So our property insurance comes in March. It renews in March, and it goes from the one that's going to come at the February board meeting goes from March 6th, 25 to March 6th of 26. Well, March, April, May, and June are going to be coded to one fiscal year, and all the rest is going to be coded. But we have to pay it all right now. So it's an accounting. So then once we get to the new fiscal year, we reverse that prepaid out and hit the expense. So that's what those are.
Do we try to time a lot of these things to be like, I know like the city, they pay their insurance on when their budget starts. Right, so I mean, do we try to align a bunch of money to stay in that fiscal year, like is that fiscal year?
It's not a requirement, and it's not necessary to. I'm not exactly sure why ours renews in March.
No, I mean, I just, for most things, do we do it in that fiscal year?
Yes,
90%.
we do. I mean, because our fiscal years, a lot of things go along with the calendar year versus a fiscal year, so it can be a little cumbersome, but it's not difficult. I mean, having a prepaid item is a very common account. So as you see here, on the fund equity part, like these are part of your fund balances. So our fund balance, like you see the unassigned here, are $57 million. Our unassigned, our fund balance at the end of last fiscal year was $61 million. So unassigned means out of that $61 million, $57 million is out there for us to pay for payroll, pay for this, pay for all these things. But we have set aside $3 million for any kind of insurance, catastrophic loss, and then also $1 million for compensated absences. So the next line that's really important to kind of look at here is the increase-decrease at our fund balance for that year. So we're going to pay attention to that number because it's going to be a part of another report that we see. I just want to point that out. When we discuss our revenue and expenditures report, that's the difference there is your revenues that you've got minus your expenditures. So right now, as Jeff pointed out, it's lower because our revenues, we haven't gotten our tax revenues yet, right? So we've been spending a lot of money, meaning it's coming out of our fund balance. So that's why when you look at this, you see this $44 million down here for your fund balance. As of December, that's kind of where we're staying. We're not $61 million anymore, we're $44 million, right? And that's really, we've had discussions before of why it's important to have 150 days of fund balance available, of expenses available, because we're going to eat it up until we start getting the money in for our revenues. And that doesn't happen until January. So,
That number probably changes year to year about how much we need. Operating days, I would imagine that changes.
no, that is, the 150 days is from July 1st until we start getting our tax revenue. So that's like a 6-month time period.
But I mean the number that it costs to operate
It will change, yes, sir.
changes every year.
It
So I mean,
does.
it's hard to keep a fund balance that.
It's always around in the same range.
Around the same
Right
range.
now, it's around 44, 45 million. So we are right there. Another thing that I wanted to point out, so you can see right here, if we look at our debt service, we have 3.8 million. Like, we've gotten more money in there, but we haven't made, so that means we're actually putting money into our fund balance for our debt service. Well, we pay our principal and our interest twice a year. We pay actually just our interest in August, so we've already made that payment in here. And then we make a principal and interest payment in February, which we're going to do Friday. And George, do you, off the top of your head, how much do we, 38 million? Yeah, 38 million is what we're going to pay out, and that is for our bond principals and interest. So we want this to continue to grow because we need to get a certain amount in there to pay it. So as of December 31st, we only had right at 20 million. So we're like, come on, money, come on, let's go.
So how does that build up?
How does this build up?
Yes.
So we're getting, the only thing that's really going to go into that is tax revenue. NRS. There's little things, but some tiny payments from the state that we
So
might
like that, the
get.
bond money.
It's not bond,
Collected?
no, this is, no, absolutely not. This is money, it's revenue. So the only way we can get revenue is through tax revenue. So we have the bucket for the M&O and we have the bucket for the INS. So this is the INS money, tax revenue that we are getting throughout the year. And so the fact that we've gotten tax revenue, and we've only made one August payment, and it was at maybe $1 million. Okay, so 2 or 3 million. And we also started with a healthy fund balance in the debt service. So that's why it's at 19. But
So basically, we're taking money out of our general fund and putting it over there in anticipation?
No.
Or as the funds come in, they're going directly into that
they
fund?
go directly into, yeah. The
Okay.
money for each one of these is completely separate and kept in completely separate accounts. Neither, they never go between. And that's a great question, and when we look at the cash investments, I'll show you that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have one question. On the absence compensation,
Yes.
what formula do we use to get to that number? Do we look at like how many days people have on the books and anticipate a certain percentage, or how is that?
So George, I'm going to have you come up and to be on the thing and so you can explain what a compensated absence is.
So, I don't want to get too in the weeds with the government, the GASB statement. For accounting purposes, we compensate vacation. So vacation payoff is compensated absences. So as of June 30th, I have to go through all of our employees who have accrued vacation and then calculate, based on those employees' rates of pay, and then the fund that those particular employees are paid out of. So like function 23, function, or whatever it is. So I have a big spreadsheet for every employee who gets vacation accrued. And then, so I calculate and I multiply out by percentage based on their fund. This is exactly how much if every single employee who has vacation left today, as of June 30th, this is what we're on the hook for. So it's,
That's $1 million of vacation that we owe if everyone, as of June 30th.
So it's an if you leave.
Right.
What does it mean there's a different fund?
Well, we need to make.
Oh, absolutely, and it is, and that is part of the audit.
The
We have to
auditors.
provide all of that information to the auditors, and they look at through and make sure, yes. I'm sorry, what was your
Like
question?
she said, like the different funds that they're categorized in.
Well, some people are paid out of federal funds, and some people are paid out of general fund, and some people are paid, yeah, so it's title funds. That's the fund piece. Yeah, I love this. Is there anything else before we move on? And we can always come back. Okay, so again, this
But
is,
honestly, if you don't ask this, most people would never know what the compensated absences
Yeah.
report is all about. Because we don't talk about it every time we get to the board. Right?
okay. So this is part, if you look on your financials, it's D. So this is where I'm going to show you where our assets are equal our liabilities and our fund balance. So all of these numbers pull forward from the report we ran. So our assets, and I'm just going to look at the general fund right now. So our assets, 47 million equal. Take your liabilities plus deferred inflows, that's tax revenue that's owed to us, plus fund equity. And you're going to get, so if you add up these three that are in the white, you're going to get the same. And those two have to match. That's how you know your balance sheet, all the way through.
Do we still have that firm that goes after our delinquent taxes?
Yes.
Is it pretty successful? In like 50% ratio?
It's not that successful, but
Oh, some years
yeah, it has been. We do use Linebarger, yes. Linebarger.
Linebarger, Grogan. You've got two big ones, Linebarger, Grogan, and then Purdue.
And we're use Purdue too. Yeah. Let me just make sure. Okay. So that is the balance sheet.
Let me just say, them going after the taxes are much more efficient than we
Oh, yeah.
trying to send them.
No, I think it's great.
No, no, no.
I want to be more aggressive.
I mean, that's always been a very good service to school districts. They go after those folks for us.
Okay, piece, and now we're going to move on to our revenues and expenditures report. So your revenues minus your expenditures equal the impact to the fund balance, which might go up or down. So if you look on your financials for letter E, I'm just going to show you in this presentation about the general fund, but you have the exact same thing for food service and debt service. And that's provided for you for each month also. But general fund kind of encompasses everything, and so I thought that was the more appropriate one to discuss. So when you look at this, you're going to see your original budget. That's the amount of revenues, 107 million. That's what y'all adopted back in June. We have an amended budget that y'all have also adopted the budget transfers to amend that budget. Any kind of outstanding encumbrances, a revenue is not going to have an encumbrance. Encumbrance is you're holding money for a future expenditure, so that's not going to be there. But then you also see your year-to-date actuals for your revenues. So as you can see, as December 31st, $20 million in local revenues. That's your taxes. So it's also other things, but it's mostly taxes. So the variance would be your amended budget minus your actual. So we expect to get at least $75 million more dollars. And I'm just looking at the local revenues here. And then the last column there is percent actual. So we are, as of December, we are pretty much halfway through the year. But you can see we are not halfway on the revenue because it all comes in the next few months. Yes, sir. So then we have, here's our expenditures. So your expenditures are by function because you adopt a budget by function. And again, it's listed out the same way. So your original budget, your amended budget, any outstanding encumbrances, again, that is an open purchase order that is waiting, holding the money for a future expense that's coming up, and your year-to-date actual expenses, and then the variance is your budget minus encumbrances minus your actuals equals your variance, which is your variance is your available balance right now.
We get grants and things like that. What line item?
That's not going to be in your general fund. That goes into your own, in your federal grant or other funds that are, and you're not going to see a balance sheet for that, but we are going to see the cash of that later on. Nice. Well, good.
Dumb question. So,
No, sir.
did I misheard? Our fund balance is 60.
When we, as of June 30th, our fiscal year ended at 61 million.
I guess my question is, like, on the balance sheet, we've this year so far done 17 million
And the,
D streets,
yes.
but the fund balance is
475. You're going to have to show me one more time.
So I guess, the fund balance is 61 and change.
Yes.
And currently it's at 47.5. Back on the balance sheet, it shows like the revenue loss for the year is at 17.
Well, see that, so let me go back here. Yes. That's your fund equity and liabilities. Fund equity is that. Yeah. So if you see that 44, remember that number?
If you take 17, that's where that
Yes.
6 million is.
Right. So there's the 17 that we're going to see in our revenue expenditures report. So here's that 44,250. That. There it is again. That's your total fund equity. And we don't see it on this page. We're going to see it in a few more pages. But let me, I'll
Gotcha. That's why I get part of the question. That always kind of throws me off.
there, you know what, now that I think about it, I wish I had, done that. Looks like Ms. Thompson has some highlighters. So we can
I do.
share. But yeah, so, I'm sorry, let me get back. I think we were on F.
Yes.
Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. So again, it's by function because that is what y'all adopted a budget on. And you really want to pay attention to the year-to-date. That's where the fund balance, any kind of impact to the fund balance is year-to-date, the actual what happened. Not any kind of open encumbrances, not any budget transfers. You see that 22. So again, also as you go through, your first report that you're given in your financials is a summary, and then as you go through your financials, you're going to see it in detail. And I only showed you function 11, which is instruction, and 12, which is pretty much library. But you can see each function is broken up by our major objects, which are your payroll, professional contract services, supplies and materials, other operating, any kind of capital outlay. So we take the summary, and break it down into detail for you. You can see what does that 49, that original, so if we're just looking at function 11 right here, those numbers all the way across are going to match function 11 all the way across there. But it's going to break it out so that you can see what is that number really made of. And that's for every single function. And then it's a few pages later, but you'll see where if you find the H, at the bottom of that detail, it's going to actually sum up all of these major objects for you. So every function's payroll costs, every function's contracted services, all the way down. And then we also, at the very bottom, show you the 90 functions, which are recapture and our TERS payment and shared services, different things like tax appraisal. Mm-hmm.
Like, so we know what function, like.
It says it on here. It's right next to the, so debt service, recapture, that's what each function means.
I can send the board.
Most of those are pretty basic, but like, I never would have guessed, like,
Is library, yes.
but I'm sure there's probably some other ones.
Well, I think what's is helpful is the next page where it does break up the subline, where it puts what's being picked up in instruction, the 6100, 6200, 6300. Yeah.
Right, it's not,
Yeah, I mean, I've looked at that, I have no clue what that means.
right. But we can actually do that. We'll send that to you tomorrow.
Yeah, like what's the plant service? Plant maintenance.
Plant maintenance, that's just maintenance. It's
Utilities and
utilities.
things?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, no, I knew that part.
We don't have to call on this. We will update it to make it something that is meaningful and understanding to you going forward in our financial
Just to know what
statements.
it is, I mean, now it's me. Understand.
Well, but you're right. I mean, but if our community is looking at it, they might wonder.
I think doing more work, this is a glossary, like a little, like a Cliff Note version.
We have something we'll
Yeah,
send.
that's-
That'd be good.
Yeah,
We
because,
absolutely will.
you know, the board's right. We live with this.
Right.
But you see this once or twice a month, you know what I mean? So it's our lingo. So,
I always say it'll help me from asking a lot of questions. So like my head, like, oh,
No,
oh, y'all, we have.
this is totally fine. So, but we will absolutely send that to you. We'll do that tomorrow, and you'll have that. Okay?
And then on the percent actual, that's percent actual of what we spent of that.
Of the budget, of the amended budget. What we actually spent of how much. Any questions on F before we? Okay. So we discussed G, how it's broken up, and H here. So now we're going to do our
Stacy, I'm
calculation.
sorry.
Oh, no,
Can you
okay.
click back to that last page? So for example, how granular can you get it? So 6200 professional contracted services. Like how many lines would you think are under that 6200?
How many object codes are, that's what these are. They're object codes. 6200 is the major object for it.
Right, so that's what I'm saying. So
There's many.
yeah, so how many do you, each of those is several, right?
Several, yes.
Okay.
That's what.
Okay.
And what we do is we roll it up because these are what is high level given to TEA.
Right. This is a P&L, almost.
Yes, it absolutely is. This is a profit and profit and loss statement. Absolutely, that's what this is. And we'll provide you with, like, the report that I'm going to send you has the
Yeah.
most common object codes that fall under this.
Yeah,
And so you'll have an understanding of
like
what,
counselors or,
right,
yeah, right, okay.
and what an account code actually is. So we actually met with our campus principals today because we've started the fiscal year 26 budget process. And so we met with them today, and I went through a presentation where we walk through every piece of the account code and what each of these means. And so I will send that to y'all tomorrow so you can see high level. But if you want the dirt, I'll
No,
give you detail.
that's fine.
I mean, it's good to know that in case in the future we do have a question, like, what is that made up of?
Yes, we absolutely can do that for you. So as we move forward, now we're going to talk about our
Funds balance.
yes, where we get to this ending fund balance. So we have our total revenues. Again, when we are looking at the impact of the fund balance, we're always looking at not looking at kind of encumbrances of the budgets. So our revenues minus our expenditures plus any kind of total resource uses equals our impact on fund balance. So that's that 17 million that you saw as part of the balance sheet. Plus whatever our beginning fund balance was. There's that 61 million that's where we ended as of June 30th of this year, 24. And right now, well, as of December 31st, the ending was at 44 million. And so what we do is before we send these off to you every month, we compare it to last year's. Where are we in the range? Because these are moment in time reports, so they're going to look different each month. So, yes, we wouldn't give them to you if we can't explain why. Yeah, we compare to make sure that what we have done is correct, and then also has something happened that maybe we haven't booked yet. Why did we book it? What are we missing? Or did something crazy happen and we need to explain that to the board? Like, this is why it's different. That could be. So that is your profit and loss, or your revenue and expenditure report. So now we'll move on to our capital project statements. So there's two that are in there, and as you go through, as I said, there's that profit and loss, that revenue and expenditures for your food service and your debt service is also part of your packet, but we're not discussing, that's not part of this presentation tonight. So as we look at our capital project statement for 2014, I highlighted you have your original budget and your amended budget. So this bond was $260 million. So that's what was originally budgeted. You can see it kind of went up, $5 million there. That is our interest that we've earned over the years. The funny thing about interest, you'd think, oh, that's extra money that we get to spend on projects. Absolutely not. It's called arbitrage. And that's a whole nother conversation that Dr. Bromley and I have gotten really close to. Because that's $5 million there. Just in the 23, we've already hit $5 million. Because the interest rates are so much higher than they were during the years averaged out over the years of the 2014 bond. So it'd be great if we could use that extra $5 million, but we can't.
Is Justin trying to use that money?
No.
I just wanted to be clear.
No, we just wanted to make sure that we were doing everything possible because we knew we needed to hold a certain amount aside.
Right.
To pay the arbitrage. And we wanted to make sure that we were doing everything we needed to do.
I was being sorry. Trying to lighten the mood this room, Jerry, now.
So arbitrage is you can't earn interest on money that you have been loaned. That's a high level. So
There's a timeline.
there is a time. Yes.
Somebody get
Project.
So we've had, have we had we've had two big bond payments to us. And so we've had a ton of money in our capital projects, which we'll talk about once we get to our cash investments report. You'll see how much money we have in there. Well, that's interest at 5%. It's a lot of money.
But I will remind the board, and several of you were on the board when I started, we have had a couple of times where we were refinance. Even since I've been here. That's when interest rates were 2.8%.
Yeah.
2.8%.
Great.
When the living was good, we took advantage of it. To Leavenworth, we were running. Mason, we'll be going to Leavenworth.
I'd like someplace warmer.
So, as you can see, each of the expenditures are, under the expenditures are all the different projects that the 2014 was paid, the 2014 bond paid for. So the total budget was 260, and I already kind of hit the little arrows over there for you.
And all this is still on the website.
Everything is on the website. Yes, ma'am.
But I mean, as far as when people approach us about transparency of bond expenditures,
Absolutely.
we have that.
This is part of, this is attached to your bond, to the board report every month. Anyone can go in there, it's open up. Not all districts do that. Some do not show you what are going to be the papers that are behind what you're going to discuss.
Crazy, yeah.
Yes, so it's,
You have a big spreadsheet.
and by law, we have to keep all of our bond payments, every payment, every invoice, everything related to a bond payment, we have to keep for the history of the world.
Forever and ever.
So we have all of that information.
We are done with anything related to previous bonds.
Yes.
All of that's been.
That's done. But we do have all the paperwork for that too.
Well, I'm making
But it's
sure.
not gonna be-
I remember
Yeah,
us finishing some things that, yeah, I just.
But we don't have any like excess funds at all. Just spend.
No, we
You
have.
still have some?
As of December 31st, we had $177,000 left from 2014. And right now, so let me move on to the next page here. That's where we'll talk about that. So you take your prior year plus your current year, we give you this. So we have unspent project funds, that's our balance of $177,000. But as of today, it's around about $82,000. So keep on moving on here. You can see all of the projects have been spent down, except we have a little bit left in technology. We have some safety and security money, and we have some fine arts money. And so they will stay there because it's been allotted to that fund, to those projects until we can move over. So they always spend the old money before they spend the new money.
So, sorry.
No, go ahead.
So, the fine arts,
Yes.
with the work we're going to do on the theater, that automatically pulls first.
Well, we will code it to, but.
Well, I mean, automatically, but yes,
Yeah.
that's where we
We
have
have-
this account before we go to the
Yes,
new bond account.
that is correct.
Thank you, I'm just making sure I.
And if
What in my head.
we already we have, what we budgeted for the 23 bond is thinking that all of this money has been paid. It's already been spent on.
Waiter.
Right.
Yes, right, okay.
But yes, if we have additional funds left in fine arts and they say, okay, you know what, I don't have anything really to spend it on, because we don't want them to just go spend money.
Right.
Right.
They need to have a purpose for that spend.
Of course.
If that can
And that will
be,
help.
yeah, if that can be used forward to the fine arts renovation, that money will be used for.
86 by itself won't do much, but with what we're already going to do.
Right.
On money.
Mhm. Yes. So that's your 2014 bond. And then we move, it's set up the same way. Here's your 2023 bond, where you have your budget of $235 million. That's what the bond sale, the total bond sale was. So you can see we're already at 235, because that's, again, the interest revenue that we've received with 5% interest going on for the past 2 years.
I'll go back. You don't. But the fact that we're 11 years out from the 2014, and we're still utilizing funds.
Be looking up at bucket
It
list.
sends a very strong message that people were very responsible and transparent. Have that fund. I think that's important to say, we've done well by that,
Okay, so again, it's set up under the expenditures. We actually have it Prop A, and then we have Prop B and Prop C. And what we budgeted versus what we've spent so far. Again, December 31st. We've made some major payments since then. And again, your prior year plus your current year equals your total. So right now in this fund, we have $75 million. We'll have one more bond sale that's going to happen this summertime frame, and I believe it's for another 70. Okay. Okay. Yes. Okay. Oh yes, there you go. 819. He knows his number too.
Good job.
So, is there anything on the 23 bond? How to read that report before we move forward?
You know, we talked about it just a second ago, but 7 or 8 years from now, board, we'll be talking about the leftover bond money. Yeah, because we'll do a lot of work. There'll be some residuals somewhere.
That is the goal. So now we're going to move
I
on
may
to
not be here,
our...
but the money will be here.
Yes,
We
right.
may not be here, but the money will.
Somebody will be talking about it.
Somebody will be talking about it.
I'll do it at 20. Well, in 24, 25.
So now we'll move on to the tax collection report. So this is a report that we received from Goose Creek ISD. They do our tax collections for us, so they provide this report to us each month.
Until you log into the website and you see all the different school districts listed there that they collect from. I'm not going to lie, this was my first time to actually go online and do that because I don't typically do that kind of stuff, but I'm doing it at my dad's house now. Sure. When I logged in, I was like, oh, okay, this explains it. They collect for a lot of different districts. All you have to do is just click on it and you can see.
Some school districts opt to do it themselves and some.
It's just expensive because I certainly do remember when we did it ourselves.
If they do it well, then let's.
Okay, that's a position you hire for.
When I worked at the bank, I'd always took that's what.
So this report is going to show you month end as of December 31st, but also year to date. So as you can see, month end, it breaks it up by current and prior years. So total that we received as of month end was 23.7 million, and year to date was 24. Then you go down to collection, so it compares last year's at this time versus this year's. So last year you can see we're at 15.4% collection rate, and this year we're at 18.67. So that's an improvement. We're happy for that, which is we expect it to be low anyway because most people don't pay. Let me say, not most people. Industries do not pay December 31st. they hold on to their money until yeah.
But I think a lot of homeowners pay later.
So
They're not escrow.
So that 15% or that 18% number includes.
It's every tax collection that is owed to us. It's not broken down by who the property owner is or what type of.
So I do have a question. What percentage of our tax base is industry?
Oh. We will get you the exact number.
I just ballpark, like ballpark.
At least.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. So
We're just really not a rooftop tax.
no, we're not, and that's real hard for people to understand. But okay, so 18%. So it looks like our residential probably is paying fairly well. What we're waiting on is the
Industry.
Industry.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
That don't pay.
But we will get you
That
that.
I'm just going to tell you, as someone who gets paid by industry, also it takes a little.
Yes, I understand. You should try to get
They
rid
have
of
their own
that.
bureaucracy too, you know, that they have to go through.
Oh yes,
See, this is how-
I understand all that.
Always wonder, like, what is it, like, every now and then, we like, say, sell all the property. What does it take to get to that? Like, how are our properties different than, like, the city does it?
So it is it does go together with the city. I mean, we have a lien against that property that is delinquent in their taxes. And so the company that we use, and I apologize, I know I sent an update about this, so let me rehash that, because I don't remember off the top of my head the name of the company, but XYZ Company, an individual who is interested in that property, they go onto the property sites, the rolls, and see what has a tax lien, and how much is that tax lien, and how long ago was it, that kind of thing, so they can get some bargaining power. And then they approach our company, XYZ Company, and says, okay, well, how much is the bottom line that they'll take? Because it has to at least pay back our taxes. And so the one that you did recently, I think it was like 14 grand that y'all did. So
If we say no to it.
says no, you say no.
So it'd be either us or the city.
Said no to that guy at Morris Point.
You did say no to the guy in Morgan's Point. Then it's a new deal. All
Then
parties have
somebody
to
else
agree.
decides they want to work that deal. That, you know,
that guy does.
always choose to not sell that.
Yeah.
Well, it's like recently, like when we did, right, and the city came and overrode us on that. I will listen. We
I
said
don't
no to
believe
it,
it
they
is.
can't.
I don't think the city, yeah.
I think it's
if
a hard
the district
no.
owns that property, that the city can't own that particular liquor license, is hard in its kind.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I mean, but how does it, if it's going together, would you say?
Because, well, we have a tax lien on it, and the city could have a tax lien on it too.
Once they have it, yeah.
So either, you both essentially.
You
All
both,
they're
but my
saying is-
understanding is that both parties have to agree.
Yeah.
So when we bring it to you, it's for y'all to yay or nay the district's portion of that lien. And
For the life
then
of
the
me,
city
I was
has to do the
wondering
same
why
thing.
somebody from New Jersey would be buying it. Or somebody in LaPorte not. My opinion.
Oh. You know, there was a lot across the street from us that went into this situation. And somebody from, I don't know, California or something bought it. And then they just put a big old for sale sign on it and they sell it. They just go in and they scoop them up in big, those things get put into just big agglomeration and they can't separate it out. So it's just, I hate it because your point is well made that people locally can't afford to buy it
People
because
locally
these
can't
big
buy it,
companies are
somebody
coming
from
in
another
and
state buys it. We don't know who they are.
and you never will. We tried.
The other thing I want to point out on this report is it breaks out, you know, like I said before, we have our money that goes into our M&O, our tax rate that goes into our M&O, and our tax rate that goes into IS. So here's the two buckets. So the maintenance operation, out of that 23 million we received up until 17 million goes into our maintenance and operations. 6 million goes into our IS fund to only pay bond principals. That's the only thing we can do is pay the bond principal and interest with that $6 million.
Okay, so that pays bond.
Yes, that, if it says debt fund, that is your INS fund. Okay, yes, ma'am. Okay, so if you move on down the tax collection report that we receive each month, I highlighted also the total remaining levy of 112 million. So that's what they're saying that we're owed left. And we also have 3.1 million of delinquent levies, so that's kind of what you were discussing. So if we received everything, we would receive another $115 million in tax revenue.
Boys will go after it.
Yes, they do that. And then we have a little other revenue that's on there.
At what point do people start protesting? When do these numbers change?
Yes,
Quite a
we do.
bit.
We see numbers change all the time. So I believe the protest time frame is yes. And so it's a short time frame, and once you meet it, then it. But again, like this is valuation. This is as of what the value was for last year, because we're paying taxes on last year's values. Nothing that we have right now.
You just say, and take them now. Governor's already talking about $1 billion tax. Last year.
Well, the reports that we're going to look at
Not-
next year.
not for this year.
Not for this year. It's set for this year, but yes, for future years, it
We just
absolutely.
wouldn't have the same amount of money to collect.
Correct. Yes, because this takes into account homestead exemptions, every exemption that's possible. They're saying, okay, here's the top amount, and then all the calculations of all the exemptions out. Here's what we think you're going to get.
At 150.
It could.
Last year they.
Everyone could put in something and we'll see. I mean, it's so early in the game. They're not even done.
Here's the,
The governor wants to go after. County did something. Talked about it.
Yeah. Yeah, he said they compress to give tax relief in the municipalities when it's spent
raise taxes.
and raise taxes. Here's my question. I'm just looking forward. The compression continues. We keep dropping the tax rate. We're the lowest tax rate we've had in however long.
And we're the lowest in the
Ever.
community.
Ever.
Yes?
But we're being offset by higher property values.
Yes.
If the state goes after and compresses those, now
We're
we
compressed
can't-
twice.
we get double dipped, and how do you offset that loss of revenue?
They say the state, well, let me say, in the 88th legislative session, which was 2 years ago, they held us harmless. Which means whatever you lost in tax revenue, we're going to give it to you in state aid. I've not heard anything in the 89th legislation, which is going on right now. I've not heard the word hold harmless at all.
I haven't heard.
Well, I saw something that's talking about, that's going away.
Right.
I haven't heard whole.
That's the only thing I've heard about holding harmless.
But if
Just don't
state
count on
aid
it.
was supposed to take care of that, currently $6,160 per kid. You're touting another $340, which would be $65. We all know, and all your actuaries say, you really need $7,500 back
To inflationary rate.
To the inflationary. So if you multiply that, 6,500 times 7,100 kids, and really we do it by 88 versus enrollment, it's about $46 state aid, which is not that much.
And so my concern, and I'm sure it's on everybody's radars, I really think that could be a real possibility. And
Oh, absolutely.
if that happens, what is our contingency? Because we can't, even if we went for a Vader, we can't offset that loss of revenue. We're so far behind now, right?
I think that won't happen.
Okay.
I'm on record for that. I'm hoping that won't happen. Because not only do you have that compounded to that, you have a $24 million payment that
For recapture.
you capture.
Right.
And so it's really not two, it's three. And so I'm not hearing that that's going to happen.
Did you hear your perspective? I know this is kind of more of a legal question, but you always hear that, like, as a district, we're not allowed to essentially lobby for anything.
Correct.
It brought my attention the last couple weeks, St. Senate College about this. Apparently all of higher education, all the junior colleges in the world, they have their own lobbies. They don't call them lobbies. They are vice chancellors or whatever. They go in, and I thought they had to be a part of a cooperative, like, when we go with TASB, it's to represent all public schools in Texas. Well, St. Senate College is telling me they got an extra $14 million grant from them, essentially, of going there and like hitting up these elected officials at the state level. Is that something that we have the ability to do? If so, say we had somebody in, like, our vice chancellor, is that something we can do, or we have to go through?
There's one way we can do it, through Bay Area Houston Economic Partnership. They have an education, like they just went to Austin to talk to
They speak on that.
they speak on our behalf.
Yeah, but
But it would behoove us to maybe have somebody that was from our district that had time to really be
So they hear
an
from
active.
They hear
But as
maybe
long-
about
yeah.
issues, because I'm on.
Yeah, because
council,
they do go and they do lobby on, well, they're
so. But to have
not.
somebody on.
they have somebody that like,
And we
this is their
usually
whole
have
staff
Thompson
job.
and Horton for Yeah, that.
Well, more than that, he has like I think with Thompson Horton again, I like those guys. When I brought that up last year about why we paying this money, what we got from it. Same thing with Tasby. I equate Tasby, like, if we're gonna wait for Tasby to make a change, like asking my kid asked me for a Ferrari on his 16th birthday. This because like, I mean, I think it's the politics of the world, like, they're not gonna get it done. And if we know that, they get little like crumbs out like that. But why can't we try to go after certain projects?
I have a question now. Important, so I have a question on the because when we pose that question, how do we do it?
Seems like kind of got squashed.
Here's one of the things. I'm not saying we can't do it. But here's what we have to be careful of. Get in trouble even with CASB and CASA because the legislature came after school in '88 because they said you're using taxpayer dollars to fight the legislature about certain. So that's why we have to, and I don't know how the community colleges are doing it, that's why I'm
They
asking.
get like government fund, like, they get
Absolutely.
state funding just like we do, and they
Absolutely.
get double, you talk about we get whammy, they're like triple dip, because they get people that pay tuition, so there's.
We've asked an attorney to kind of, I've asked an attorney to better understand. But I don't want us to get in trouble with, the watchdogs that are saying, wait a minute, you're using.
They're doing it again, they're gonna do it again in the '89.
Of course.
I don't want to get too far off, but in short, the 7 or 8 of us are the best lobbyists the district ever hired. So if we want to do something, then we can do it ourselves, and it's free and it's legal. And we can go to Austin, or we can tell they're here
And we can talk to them in their offices.
for a year, and they're here for a year and a half.
But
My dad's in a lot of
there
that.
are.
They've hired, I know how to guy, like, he's got connections with like the speaker, he's got
Same thing
like
that-
high level connections and this and that. So,
I don't know, Jeff, they may be being paid through a different foundation. But the funding source, if you're talking about funding source, it may be coming through a different foundation that's not part of the college.
I guess what I'm getting at is, if there's a way, like, I just thought, like, we always had to go at like, all public school. Like, maybe that's the problem, maybe we figure out a way to like, they're not gonna come fund our teachers.
We don't, those folks that deal
If we
with.
say we wanna do an enhanced STEM program or whatever else, that's kind of what St. Jack is doing, they want a specific program, they're doing an enhanced college, and they're getting additional funding that all the other colleges.
I will be sure to share what I said.
Thank you.
Back to you, Stacy.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, this is. Okay, I think that is the end of our tax collection, so we're going to move on. So in your packet is your quarterly investment report. You're going to get that 4 times a year, every quarter. But if, on the months that are not a quarter, when you don't receive this, you're actually going to have a monthly investment report that's part of your financials. And it's pretty much this information, just not a quarterly one. And a quarterly one, it looks at, we're going to look at October 1st versus December 31st, because that's, what was the change between those 2 quarters? On the monthly one, you're just going to see that month's information, okay? So, you know, at the, so here is where we're talking about, these are our bank accounts. So we've got, in every single one of, over here, let me start over here. So at the top, you have our depository bank, which is our Wells Fargo. Then we have money markets, which are pools, investment pools, which is where we keep the majority of our money, because as you see, interest rate is very high compared to averaging at least 5 versus.
How long will we lock in?
No, you're not locked into a pool at all. We can move, that's the beauty of it.
Well, I'm just looking at, I know
But we're not-
interest rates have dropped, is what I'm saying.
We're not required to be in the pool, though. I mean,
You
if
are
we
not
wanted to hire
required.
Goldman Sachs
No.
will come and take over.
Some districts, well, I know of one that has had another company do their investments for them, and I used to work for that district, and I did not see any gains from it. But, okay, we do have one CD that's for $1 million, but it's at 4.4, so why would we put money in CDs when we make more money and keep them in the fund? So this is something that is actually under George's watch. He moves money to, he follows that interest rate, and he tries really hard to get the biggest bang for our district's buck. So as we go through, you know, you see the yield, so that's the interest rate that we get. And then we have a bank account that is our general and special revenue fund. So it's not just general fund money. I always view it as kind of like an umbrella. So underneath this, we call it general operating. So it's your general fund, but then also all your federal funds and that. And we have our child nutrition fund, debt services, our INS. We have our activity funds, which is our, we have our capital projects, so that is both the 214 and the 223 bond. And we have a workers' comp. So, no. Well, we keep that money to, yeah, well, I don't think we're self-funded. I apologize. I'm going to have to check that. I don't think we are. We use CAS as our workers' comp company.
Claims administrator.
Yes.
Why do we have?
We have that money in the workers' comp fund in case something occurs in the future. It's kind of like a hold, a safety hold for us.
So what we can invest in,
Yes. So if you continue like a couple pages over, every year y'all, in June, y'all adopt what our investment policy is, and that is a part of the report that y'all get each month. So that is, then you can see the total investments all the way down.
We only have one Wells Fargo account. We had an account with Gulf Coast.
We have
That's just
CD
the
with
CD.
Gold Coast. Oh, sorry.
But we never had a checking account there.
Not that I'm aware of. We currently do not. We only have banking with Wells Fargo.
is all annual or?
For the CD is a annual CD. Everything else is daily. It's and that's the beauty of it. It's
What's the
flexible.
best one?
Question. My turn. If I know that we bank with Wells Fargo because we have always banked there. Bay Shore Bank before that, and the district always banked there. And so if this, I mean, for time, forever. Do y'all ever look at, is there another, okay.
We
That
just-
is
we
what's
just did
going
it.
with, that's actually part of your February.
Okay.
Is to go, we had to go for RFP. We are required to go to RFP for
Okay.
the depository fund.
Okay.
And so we did, and we had two different banks apply and go through the bid process, and we have a criteria that they have to meet, and Wells Fargo won.
Okay.
So that's what we're going to ask them to approve
Okay.
that.
So you do that, how often do you do the RFPs?
I believe we have to do it every 3 years, but you have a 2-year renewal.
Okay. I'm just
2-year
curious.
renewals, yeah. So, and yes, and Wells Fargo has been fantastic for
Oh, yeah,
us.
I just knew that was always where the money had been, always. So I just wondered. Okay.
But no, there is a required by law that we go to our bank, do a depository RFP
Okay.
in a certain period of time every
We
year.
have something that damaged you, maybe 8 to 10 years ago.
I have no
Yes?
idea.
Okay,
George, you're
good,
saying
I'm not
that?
crazy.
Longer ago, two RFPs, within 2005. I don't remember exactly.
We'll find out and let you know.
That's okay.
Yeah, it's not important. I was just,
Oh, they were the other ones that applied.
Correct. That's correct. So if you continue on with your quarterly investment report, you'll see some pie charts here for you. So portfolio is how much is capital projects. So as you saw, that is the bulk of our money that's in the bank right now. And some INS fund and then our general operating account. But then also you see that we keep the bulk of our in pools because they are very stable, they are diversified, and they are flexible, meaning we can get that money out within the day if we needed to. And they're making better interest rates than a CD. So then we compare it to December. So it's the same exact information again, all the way across. And then you see that general fund has grown. Our capital projects has gone down a little bit because we've been making payments. But again, we're still 95% in our pooled. And and how we allocate our assets are part of, and they fall within the range that the board has approved for our investments.
What about the 150 days? Other funds, like say, workers' comp or IS, like, is there like a standard
No. No, because we are not, that's not our maintenance and operations. That is, we don't have to buy stuff out of those accounts. We don't have to pay out of those.
What about like on work, like if there's like, if you're not like, it's like 5 million, say, well, that's enough.
No. We don't have anything written that says that, yeah. Great question, though. So then we compare our October 1st versus our ending. And the differences are going to be kind of deposits received and withdrawals, plus the interest that we earn. So as you go through and look at that, the questions might be, well, what are the withdrawals? We have these huge, in that 3-month time period, we've withdrawn a whole lot of money. That is for any kind of payroll, any accounts payable, paying our vendors, that type of stuff. So, that continuously come out. We have to, and we move our money around from the different pools and put it into our Wells Fargo to actually pay the bills. So we don't keep a lot of money in our Wells Fargo bank account because it doesn't earn any interest. So before every payroll or we keep money in there, but not an exorbitant amount. Or before we do a check run, accounts payable check run every Thursday, so we move the money over before we do that. So if you'll see another, in text pool, these deposits, that's where all of our tax revenue is deposited straight into text pool. So that's where you're going to see that. It is, yes. So we keep it in there until we need to move it around. And then we go to our last report, our budget transfer, a budget amendment report. So anytime there's a change between functions, it has to be brought to the board for approval. Because in June, y'all approved, we're going to spend X amount of dollars in function 11 in instruction. So if something changes from that, we have to receive your approval to do that. So as you can see, so in the codes that are on the corner over here, they're going to relate to the details of the transfer. But this is your original budget that was adopted, and then the one that amended. Same one that's on your revenue and expenditures report. So if we looked at 1, we had a 1 up there, 1 here, and 1 here. I'm going to follow it along. So those were, it'll give you a description, dues and ACA, academic decathlon. So Dr. Griffin asked to put this in. Now, money's held there. It's not, he doesn't have access to this money until y'all approve it. And then we go in and post it, and then he has money in those funds. So it looks like he just needed to move some money around from a general supply account and a travel account and disperse it down for the academic decathlon and to pay for different dues. Of course, I will say Dr. Griffin, he inherited his budget because it was already done by the time he became the principal at the high school. So we expect him to move money as he needs to be moved. And then the next one, number 2, would be just between travel, between different functions. So, and that's how you read the report. Are there any questions that I can answer for you?
You start over.
That was very helpful.
Oh, it's fantastic. I think, we have to understand the instrument, so we can make good decisions. And, the more that we dig into this, I think we are a well-run district. I think that the priorities are in line, and I think that obviously the transparency is there.
And your audits tell you that. Audits come back.
Yeah, and there's always going to be questions just because it's so fluid. You could have something change from the point of you printing the report or closing the period, and then the next week have a whatever. I want to challenge everybody in the room, really, listening about the voucher argument and the governor's plans. And if they can justify this private school and the school choice voucher and give it this value, and then say the public sector is going to get this value, And they use the justification of like a dichotomy or scale, the economy of scale. Like they're saying that, it costs that much money for the private schools because there are fewer students. Well, then this inverse is also true, that it costs, as the students decrease, the cost increases. And if we lose these kids, our costs are going to continue to rise. And I think right now, I was talking to somebody earlier, and LaPorte is in that just precarious spot. We're stuck in, I don't want to say mediocrity, but for a better analogy, is like the Texans. The Houston Texans are good enough to win the division. They get knocked out in the first round, but then they get to pick, towards the very bottom. They never get to get a franchise player because they're always just right there in the middle of the road. We're stuck there in terms of our enrollment. And until they do anything with the ADA and start paying based off what we build our district for, we're just stuck. And I don't know how to fix that, because it's
Enrollment affects that. Not us
Right.
getting kids, but the number of students that go to Deer Park.
and they were the ones, obviously, that I immediately went to.
I mean, that's like a voucher program.
They are, the cost per student is a lot less than it is at LaPorte ISD, just because the enrollment numbers are in their favor. They can go in that cone once it inverts. They've got a surplus to go after some of these special programs. They've got extra revenue to move around. And we don't. We've got, and I don't know how to fix it. I don't know what we can do, but I think that we are in a position and a time that we have to come together and get outside the box, because we're just going to be stuck in this perpetual cycle, constantly, because we are going to be chasing that fund balance soon, if something doesn't change.
I was at my superintendent's meeting today, and out of the 60 plus superintendents in the greater Houston area, there are 3 school districts that are not as worried about this legislative session as everyone else is. I won't call their names out, they're on record, but it's because they're growing 2,000 students per year. So your fast growth districts don't have to worry about it. Our neighbors to the south over here are not having to deal with that because they're growing. I mean, there's massive plots of land and homes being built, flocking there. So when you've got the numbers of families and youngsters, you don't have to worry about some of these things because your revenue takes care of it, the amount of folks that are moving there. But most school districts are either losing kids or stagnant. We're in that stagnant spot.
Because just look at our footprint within the city limits. Unless we get an influx of kids outside the district, we're landlocked. We're stuck in terms of bringing in more of those students. And I don't know. I think, to Jeff's point earlier, having the lobby, have to find some outside resources, kind of supplement what we've got, because it just isn't sustainable. For
And I
sure.
don't see us losing a lot of kids to a private school, just mainly because there's just not really any around. But the number
They
that
may
we.
come.
And
They may come.
They may come. We've got the Bob Hope School over in Baytown, right? But
Come.
the deal with Deer Park, so many of our kiddos live closer to Deer Park schools than they actually live to LaPorte schools. I don't think they're making their choice
No.
based on.
And it's
Who's
a
better, I think
centuries-old
it's-
issue here in this town.
Yeah.
Because
But I
that's
think
been
in
going
proximity.
on.
But I think some of it is
Don't worry about that.
proximity.
No, you're right.
You
And I'm not, in no way am
I don't think you're blaming anybody, but I'm saying,
That's the
we've been
concern.
trying to compensate for that.
Right.
Trying to do things to kind of change that.
And I think another variable, I know we've kind of mentioned it, but it's not getting enough attention, is, the sped population. I can't run, if we've got 20 kids per class, we know that we don't. We've got more than that, right? But sped education, there's a lot of situations where you have to have 1-to-1, and that just adds, again, to the overall cost of operating the district. And I don't know how, I just feel like we've got to be really, really aggressive, and we've got to be consciously working on some solutions and some contingencies, because
Well, I'll say, I'll go back to what Jeff said earlier about who can we get to lobby on our behalf. We know that there is just some things for our own representatives for this area that people are it's going to fall on deaf ears. So we've got to figure out a new strategy for that, where they stand with some of these things. I don't feel like they're anti-public schools I certainly know that they're pro-ESAs right now. And I'll just leave it at that. And that's going to happen. I really believe
I do
as we're
too.
standing here, that's going to happen. The governor has already said, once that happens, I think the coffers are going to open up. There's going to be some funding to come. Some of it is going to be earmarked for teachers. Some of it's going to be earmarked for safety and security. Some of it's going to be earmarked for STEM and CTE and those kinds of things. And so we don't sit on our hands and wait for it to happen. We have to just be active. I can tell you, my team will tell you, I wasn't with them several times because I was in meetings with legislators. We were in Austin last week. Several meetings, several lunches we didn't go to. I didn't go to because I was in meetings with legislators. Now, they don't all live on this side of town and they don't all represent us, but they are in the legislature. And so they can help to hear our concerns. Our biggest concern, or some of our biggest concerns, is number one, we need to get away from being funded based on average daily attendance. If we've got 7 and 100 kids, I really need that $6,500 times 71.
With only six.
But there's only 4.
4 left.
In the whole nation. Only 4 in the whole nation. All right, that's one, and I've shared this with the board before. The number 2, it breaks my heart that an ESA can go to Kincaid School worth $10 billion, and $340 comes to a kid in the public school. And I'm using that as an example.
Right.
Kincaid School, not so we really need to be able to share that. I think ESAs are going to come, but I really wish there would be some equity in the way that happens.
And to our argument, when we are advocating, that needs to be part of our dialogue, is the fact that these ESAs are going to be 100% funded. They're not funded based off average daily attendance. That's been one of the big spinoffs. They get paid no matter what. If you assign that school, you get the funding. And yet, that's my problem, is there can't be 2 standards.
Well, they can't, but they don't even allow us to take the actions that they used to compel these parents to get their kids to school.
Although he did say that he is now, right?
Well, that's what he said.
We talk all the
We'll
time
have to
about
see
the
what
state
happens.
level, right? Like, it was really scary for me here at the federal level. They called it the ECCA. It was adopted by Boone and Johnson. So, and basically, essentially, it's you have vouchers that they're going to mandate at the federal level. So if we heard anything about that, like they this is a task they were highly against it.
Some of that goes to be the leader.
So it's pretty scary.
I think this is the precursor.
So when they say, basically, say that whatever they say is the supersede anything that happens. If some miracle happened, we convinced vouchers in Texas that this is still going to happen.
Well, who knows, but I mean, vouchers are going to pass in Texas.
Yeah.
It's just a
They're coming.
miracle.
They're coming.
So we just
They're
learn how
coming.
to work with it
So you
and figure it out.
figure out what you can get, and really one of them is enrollment
It's
versus,
like, how do you play the game?
ADA.
And
I think
I think
that's-
Yeah,
I
so you start
have no
figuring out what you can
problem
help.
complaining about it. I have no problem not complaining about it if every child was treated equally from a respect of them getting the same amount of funding. So I won't complain if they'll
Match.
treat everybody equally.
I'm saying they're probably not, they're not going to.
They're not
That's
going
just
to,
how-
they're not going to make
So
them
we just need to figure out how to give a public school, ask for what we need.
Private schools.
So
That needs to be the ADA.
do you know that deal in Galveston
The private
began?
schools in
There's a guy named
Texas.
Ted Beard with Longview
Former
ISD.
president.
So I was kind of shocked at this, kind of outside the box. His district, if I understood it right, has their own charter school. They're getting this voucher money centrally. Is that something we, I'm not proposing.
No, I'm not saying it like that. Ted and I are friends, okay, we served on the TASB board together. The charter school that they have is not to get other kids. Is they get to write the charter so they don't have to deal with some of the issues that we're having to deal with.
That's what I'm saying, but it
They
seems
took a
like-
low performing school and said, we need to do something so it's not taken from us.
But aren't they getting like they'll benefit from the funding?
They might.
I know there's gotta be, that's one example, there's gotta be other
There's got to
ways.
be some other
For
ones.
lack of a better word, like
No.
play the game.
We're gonna have to become innovative on that.
Man, look at you two.
But I'm sharing with the board the things that we are really advocating. One is enrollment.
Yeah.
One is somebody taking care of our teachers, funding, and really the foundational school a lot. You don't hear that terminology a lot, but we certainly talk about it as superintendents. foundational school allotment is at 6160, that really needs to just be increased. And so
It hasn't been increased since 2019.
Right. And so
Yes.
that's how you get to take care of all of the things that we've spent the last hour and a half talking about, because that's your state aid. Next week at the board meeting, I'm going to give you the board just an overview of kind of what's going on and what I know about what's happening in the legislature. Here's another one that's coming. There is a bill, and I'll find out and I'll send it to you so that you can read it for yourself. There is a bill being discussed right now in the House and Senate to encumber 1,046 school districts in the state of Texas, all fund balances. Put it into a fund reserve, let it draw interest, grow it because it becomes billions upon billions now. And school districts would have to make a request to the board, which you used to have as a fund balance. Now, I don't think that's going to go far. And all the things that we thought wouldn't become 5 years ago, 10 years ago, are at our doorstep. So we just need to be there. I'm willing, and there's a couple of things I'm going to share with y'all via email about a couple of opportunities where boards and supervisors go to the Capitol and work those halls and go visit with folks. And so certainly you'll get an invitation if you'd like to do that. We do that together and come up with our talking points. Because there can't be 35 talking points. It has to be 3 or 4. That's it. So you can memorize them and you don't even have to look at anything. Just a couple of things that we need to ask for, because you're not going to get everything. And even out of this school, you're maybe going to get one.
If they do.
Did anybody have any questions for Stacy? I'm sorry.
But that's,
She's circling
that's
around.
finance. That's
You did a
fine.
great job, Stacy.
Thank you.
Sorry, we can keep talking. I just didn't want you to have to stay up there.
She's just you're going like that.
Thank you, Stacy.
The buzzards are flying around.
And I do think, we do the Citizens for Space, and go to DC and talk to all of the different congressmen about, the importance of the space program. So it'd be something similar to that. And you have your talking points, you've got your little cheat sheet that you hand to them, and there are things sometimes that they just don't know. I mean, they think they know, they don't know. They don't really realize, a lot of them, the impact of having a behavior student in a general education classroom with no support. They really don't get the level that can disrupt. And sometimes when you talk to them, you don't always change their mind. But sometimes you can actually give them a little nugget that makes them go, maybe we ought to think of that.
Well, a lot of them don't know. Like, for example, Deanna and I met with Congressman Sessions last year. And he said, how are y'all combating, like, the kids running around dressed as squirrels in the boys and girls bathrooms? I'm like, we're not combating it, it's not happening. That's what you're, yes, that is their name.
No, we did have a couple of furries at the high school. We did have a couple of furries at the high school.
But,
They've been gone.
that just kind of showed how
Disconnected.
disconnected a lot of them are. I mean, you spend that much time, it's different in Texas because they're in district so much, but people in Washington, I mean, you think about it, they're out of district for 90% of the year. I mean, they're back and forth, and if you spend all your time in Washington, you're just not up to date on what's going on. But I think it happens at a smaller level in the state legislature, because they're still here, and they understand what's going on.
You also need to understand that a district like LaPorte's not going to have the same issues sometimes as a district like HISD, and
Or
so.
Friendswood or.
Yeah, I mean, every district is different, which is why we need to be able to control.
It seems to be like in talking to San Jack, a lot of time talking to Jack. It seems like so we focus a lot on sped, population's going up every year, our costs go up, all these things. Maybe something like that, if we were to lobby and approach the appropriate people in the state and say, we need an extra $3 to $5 million on this project based upon our area, our district categories, and I just think, maybe we don't, but I think we're a much higher probability of making some sort of success than if we're like waiting to say, well, we want the state to get all public schools, billions of dollars. We're like, no. $5 million is nothing to them,
But $5 million is a whole lot for us.
Yes.
But you're right. But we start, and I'm telling you, everybody will tell you, advocacy, you start with your own legislators.
Right.
We know who they are. We know which ones that will give us an ear, and we know which ones that are pretty flippant. Right? We know who they are. And so that's where we start. And so if I'm going to Austin next week or week after, whatever, I've got to go to those people and say, here, I'm in your area. Because those are the people that will give you their ear. Even if they're not going to help you, they're still the people that you're supposed to talk to.
Right.
So I don't disagree with you at all. We'll take whatever we can get, but we also need to ask for more than, because you may not get.
Be able to keep.
Board, any further questions or comments? Sorry. You should chew your twit first. Nothing? I'm glad my pain was funny. I could have died.
No, we wouldn't let it happen.
All right.
Getting so
Yeah, this
dramatic.
meeting,
So, I think I know the answer to this one too. So like, we were talking, we've had a snapshot for like right now today, it shows the fund balance of 44 million. So we were like, I know we don't do this, but we had a budget off that one. Our decision would be a lot different. We probably did the budget in March, right? That money comes in. That's what I can always get at. Is there no way we can like forecast a little bit better? Like, we set our budget.
We actually, you adopted in June. We started in January.
And we don't know the actual.
Until the next September.
Where
We got to remember.
So what point?
Well, we'll get at, like, when we talk about, we do that recapture payment in June, so we have major like funds coming out. It always looks like the sky's falling, like when we're setting our budget, right? And so that's just like, is there anything we can do to tweak, or I don't know. I know we don't want to go out and spend all this money. But we've been fortunate, right, that when we set these budgets, these multi-million-dollar deficit budgets, they always kind of end up a lot better than we think at the end of the year. That's a great thing, but like, it also gives me pause, or like, lose sleep over like,
We spend more.
if we had a better assessment of like what the true numbers would be, maybe we'd spend a little bit more on X, whatever it may be. Is there anything we could do at all to like
It,
that?
If there was, we would do it. It's very difficult because we are such a property valued district. That's where we get our money. We don't get it from the state. We get our money from tax revenue. So the fact that we don't even get what our tax, we adopt in June. We don't get our final tax, what the assessment's going to be until August. We don't even get what the state's going to tell us our tax rate's going to be until August. So we have to guess.
Guessing conservatively.
We are guessing conservatively. We are trying our best because what we don't want to do is overspend and say, okay, we're going to adopt a balanced budget and then lose $5 million. Every district is in the same. Even if you're a August 31st, you're still. Everyone is in the same. And so what has to change is how property valuation is done. Or what has to change is how districts receive funding. But we can't do anything.
So you have a solid number, yeah, I mean, you can't.
You never have a solid number until your audit is
And this
finalized.
year's going to even be more difficult because it's a legislative.
Yeah, so
You guys know what I'm saying? Like, I always, yes, but you always end up at like, always somewhere around $60+ million, which is a great problem. It's not a problem, it's a good thing.
And the
So
reason
you're
it
talking
has been, we had
20.
ESSER funds for 3 years. We got a Harvey payment that was $14 million. So we got all of these things that were due to disasters and catastrophes. COVID, Harvey, XYZ. That's just money that was given to every district, but it was given to us. And that's why we've been able to stay at the 60 million.
But those were budgeted in, like, we knew.
No,
those
they weren't.
Those ESSER ones, we don't.
No, they were, but when that budget was passed, those ESSER funds are not part of the general fund.
Now you were getting the ESSER when you passed the budget.
No, and that's not a budget that you would approve. The ESSER funds were not part of the general fund. You approved the general fund, our food service, and our debt service. That was a federally funded grant. The ESSER funds were paid out of a totally different
But it offset a whole lot of them.
It offset some of our general funds, so we were able to move some of
So we didn't
this.
know, like, it wasn't part of the multi-year agreement?
It wasn't part of it,
So
but
didn't we know what we were getting from the government?
we did,
But that
but
had been accounted for somewhere,
It was accounted for, like we said, okay, in the general fund, or they said, prior to me, they said in the general fund, we're going to pay part of our employees, we're going to pay for these 11 instructions. Yeah, we're going to pay some of our property insurance. So we were able to decrease the expenses in our general fund, which y'all approved, and because we moved those expenses over to be paid with ESSER
But we knew we only could do that.
for 3 years. Also, during that time period, you used a disaster rate. So that's why you were able to put money into the.
Yeah,
No, that's what I'm getting at. We knew that when we adopted our budget, that we were ESSER funds, that would be going into that.
Right.
Yeah, 2 years ago, we put back 5.5 million.
And that was the only reason for that is because we had a company that go and protest our property valuation.
No, yeah, I know there's multiple reasons for it, but like, the fact of
It's
the matter
not
is.
something we can
you're saying
predict.
we could've
It's
used
cannot-
that.
So if we can't
Yeah.
predict it, we can't build it into our budget.
Would it be, this is pie in the sky thinking, okay? What is the optimal, the best month to start your fiscal budget? Is it January 1? Is it June?
Well,
Is
you
it-
only have two options.
Oh, yeah, January or June, right?
No, you have
July,
September
sorry,
1st or July 1st. Those are your two options. that
And are we at a disadvantage by having ours start in July? Okay.
Absolutely not.
Okay, I
Because
got
every campus gets to start with a brand-new budget every year.
You're September 1, everybody, you start on August 1st, but everybody's waiting around because you.
You can't buy anything, yeah.
Okay.
That's September 1.
All right.
And I'm in the
Say,
September
yeah.
1, you know, where you sit around.
Most
waiting.
districts are moving away from August. Like I can't remember which one right now, but
Yeah,
there's,
because you're in school almost a month before you have a budget to,
In the old days, when we didn't start until later in the August, it was different, but now everybody's back August 1st, right? And so there was a time when we didn't come back until the end, you know, August 20th. You know, well, it's been a long time ago, but that's why, you know, it didn't hurt us as bad.
Right.
So as we get into this budget timeline, at what month or point, every year we go through the compensation plan? Seems like last minute.
we,
Last minute.
Oh, well, we're doing it earlier this year.
you're going to have a budget workshop.
August.
Our next budget workshop is going to be in April. Dr. Jackson and Candace are going to work with y'all. And we're going to go through and give you information of each group. When it was changed past what it is now. Are we
And then-
are we-
And then after that meeting, are you wanting us to make our suggestions? Or you want to make it prior to that meeting?
You know what?
I just want to be ahead of
We'll,
it.
we'll strategize and get you some information early, so that when we come, we can have a conversation at night. Okay, with the chair? And then, because we still are working on our budget time, so we want to leave that night at least kind of having a good idea of where we are.
Yeah, the goal, that's a great idea. So the goal would be in April, we're going to meet with y'all to review our compensation plan, our current compensation plan. And then, excuse me, at the beginning of May, we'll actually have our budget workshop, which will
Where
again
you
be
will have
very
your-
preliminary, but cool.
And there still could be subject to.
Okay,
Anything else, board? All right.
okay, thank y'all.
Thank you. This is adjourned at 7:45. Thank you.